This is Midrash Matos Matos, entitled, Ever Since Creation, God Has Been Making Ladders.
Now, why are we talking about ladders? Because the Midrash brings a story which sort of frames the whole discussion that we're going to have. And that is this matron, which we know is these Roman noble women who always had questions for the rabbis. She asked the question, is it true God created the world? Yes, he created the world in 6 days. What is God doing now? And the answer she got was, God now has people going up or down ladders. In other words, life is full of tests. Life is full of potential growth, which means you're going up or down. And this is true both in the individual and on the communal level, on the national level. So how does it relate to our Parsha? Well, as you know, in our Parsha, there is the famous story of the tribes of Reuven and Gad, who, after this war with Midian, they become tremendously wealthy, they have a lot of livestock, and they come to Moshe with this improbable question, which seems to have tremendous chutzpah. They say, I know that, we've been going for 40 years in the desert to get to the homeland, and that was the whole purpose we got out of Egypt. But we have all this livestock, and that's very good grazing on the other side of the Jordan. Can we just stay here? Amazing. And so this sort of sets up everything, because the Midrash says something really unbelievable. It says that this whole war with Midian was in part giving Reuven the test of wealth. What are you going to do with it? Of course, they flunked that test right away. They wanted to, come up against the entire plan for 40 years and just put their own needs first and say, hey, can we just settle here and have a good place for our cattle? Of course, they do agree to fight with the rest of the country and then come back, but you can see where their priorities are. So that's a test of wealth, and the Midrash goes on to say that there are actually other things that we're tested with. It says, Shalot matanot bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam chachma gvura va'osher. There are 3 gifts that God put into the world. There is wisdom, there is strength, and there is wealth. And all of these, if you know where they're coming from, you know that they came from God, they are tremendous gifts. If you don't know where they're coming from, if you think it was my doing, I'm so smart, I'm so strong, I'm so wealthy because of my achievements, then the Midrash says they are completely worthless. Now, I want to talk about on the national level of these ideas. So it's interesting. There is a contradiction in the psukim in this parsha. The verses. One verse says that this war at Midian is going to be revenge for the Jewish people. After all, Midian was the one who caused the Jews to sin with the women in the parsha of Pinchas, and before that. So it's a revenge for the Jewish people. And then another pasuk says Moshe refers to it as revenge for God. So what's going on here? So then Moshe says, according to the Midrash, straight out to God, hey, come on. Why does everybody hate us? Because we got the Torah, and we are singled out by you as the Jewish people who got this Torah. So nobody would have started any wars with us if we didn't get the Torah. So let's call a spade a spade. This is avenging your honor. It's not for us, it's for you, because a war against the Jews is really a war against God. And it's all the same. And so that, of course, sets up a whole other kind of test. Because that means, if you look at Jewish history, it's true that all the nations of the world throughout our history were in some sense sort of like a tool that God used to keep us in line. And when we didn't deserve to be in our land, so big empires came and threw us out. And if our actions weren't up to snuff, so we had all kinds of difficulties. But then again, so that's tied into the test on a national level, the Jewish people who are being tested, and our destiny unfolds based on how we do in these tests. But even there's another aspect to it, that there's even tests for the nations of the world, because when the nations of the world go overboard in their cruelty then that's a test that they flunk. Famous example of Paro, who was overtly cruel, and Titus. All these people went overboard. You could even say that during the Inquisition, so nations that at one time were world powers like Spain and Portugal, because of the way they treated the Jews, they lost it all and they were no longer world powers. So they were tested, they were exhibited tremendous cruelty, and they were no longer world powers. So you see, back to the idea of the ladders, it's individuals going up and down the ladders, and it's nations going up and down the ladders. This is really the history of the world. It's tests and challenges. What you do with them, do you grow and become better, or do you flunk them and you come crashing down that ladder? Have a great Shabbat.